Welcome to the Resilient Campus Podcast, amplifying the voices of college inclusion innovators. I'm your host, Sabby Labor, founder and CEO of Resilient Campus. Join me each week as I interview professionals on the front lines of campus and community movement building. For more information, please visit resilientcampus.com/podcast. Number 8 of the Resilient Campus Podcast. Today we're speaking with Dar Mayweather from Good Mayweather Consulting and Eastern Michigan University. Dar Mayweather serves as the founder of Doing the Good Work. His pronouns are he, him, and his. A first-generation college student, Dar earned a bachelor's in criminal justice, a master's in education, and is currently pursuing a doctorate in educational leadership. His professional leadership journey began in corporate, then mental health, and now higher education. He gets energy from speaking in front of crowds and training people on how to lead across difference. You can follow him at Doing the Good Work on Facebook and Instagram and at Good Mayweather on Twitter. Dar, thanks so much for taking the time to be with us today. I'm so excited to talk with you. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. I am thrilled to be talking with the social justice community. This is my community. Oh, yes.
Nice. So glad to have you. And I feel like there was a capital T on that thrilled, so that's amazing.
Thrilled.
Hey, Dar, so I know that bio is just a real snapshot on who you are and what you're bringing today, but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a little bit more is, of course, Doing the Good Work. That's, the hashtag. You can look me up pretty much on all social mediums, and you can find my work or you can find my interests. And another thing about me is just I'm a believer, right? I grew up spiritual, but I really grew up with not a Christian background. And so the Bible school that I went to was really focused on proving the existence of God, proving that he had multiple names and stories as he went throughout the ages and dispensations. And so I think that's a huge piece of how I became, I guess, internationally known speaker, educator, innovator. My whole entire life, I've been challenging the status quo. Like Christianity is everywhere. And the one thing that I grew up in spaces as is non-denominational, not having a religious affiliation. And so going to bat with people at like 4 and 5 years old about religion, that's my background. I know a lot of people probably like, what, like a 4-year-old arguing religion, but that's what I learned and that's what I knew. And so that's just a part of who I am.
Nice. And Dar, which identities are most salient for you today?
That's so funny. In saying that now, it's like, I think you would have asked me this a year ago. I'd just been like, black and male. But now being a husband, being a parent, because my life has changed so much, those are huge. Those are huge in how I do my work. They're huge in how I make connections with people. And I think another piece about the social justice orientation is recognizing, like, as you go further and get better and you get more professional opportunities, you learn that you have a lot more privileges than you do targeted identity. I went from poor to middle class. I went from uneducated, bad public school systems to getting a PhD. Like, my blackness and my maleness, those two things together are not operating the same as when I was a kid. And so I have to recognize that I'm also juggling that all the time. So, it's always changing. But I would say right now, husband and father for sure.
Okay. Sounds like you have a lot of identities that are salient today that may have shifted over time. And you being a 4-year-old, having these debates about, spirituality and religion, I could just see you back then, and that shaping who you are today. Do you feel like those skills that you learned early on in life, it sounds like, you had must have had a community of folks, that you were kind of being socialized and supported as a young person. Like, does that influence your work today? Do you bring any of those skill sets or those experiences into your work, in the college environment?
Yeah. So, I'm glad that you asked that because, now fast forward, from a 4-year-old arguing about the religious identity that I had to fast forward to a 25-year-old graduate, master's level graduate of college, professional, young professional, entry level professional and student affairs practitioner, found myself a lot more spiritual than religious. And how and why did I come to that place is because the religion that I grew up in, I found that shame and blame was a huge part of the orientation of the religion. So I was taught to go out and preach to people that Christianity was wrong. And then I was arguing about Christianity. And one thing you will know about me, if you see me, I always got a smile on my face. So I'm always happy. I'm always trying to bring people together. And one thing that my religion was not doing at the core of me was helping build a community. And so I disassociated. I went to a more spiritual route. I started studying other religions. But really where that comes from is recognizing that blame and shame has no place in social justice. It has no place in the love for social justice. If you really care about the work of social justice, like, you will recognize that love does more for it than hate, than separation, than it does more for building community than anything else in the realm of social justice. And I think that's what really helped me understand, and how I do the work more today is all about bringing people in, accepting people where they are. I don't care how ignorant they are. I've done enough self-work to be able to deal with some of the issues that other people have, because it doesn't bother me. And so I'm able to go in and educate with a clear mind, recognize I have bias, but they're not playing out at that moment because I'm educated. And so my goal is to get the information out as best as possible and use a system of operations that helps people absorb the information easily. That's my role. That's my goal as a social justice educator. And so, that's how it's influenced my work.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. So I hear a couple themes coming up when you're talking about the work that you're doing today. It sounds like you're building community, you're bringing people in, and you're looking at these different ways to get the information out to people in a way that really kind of matches how they'll understand it, how they can digest it. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you're doing today, in the college environment, the university environment, around inclusion and equity.
Absolutely. So, higher education practitioner, diversity and inclusion consultant. Mainly, I started just in the classroom, or with the free opportunity to train people in a 4-credit class at a university, Division I university in the state of Michigan. And through that, really was afforded the opportunity again, volunteered. So this is free work. This is me creating my own platform. This is me booking myself, right? That's what I like to say. I recruited students to be a part of a first-year experience course that focused on leadership across different. And then from there, I created I got a new job at Eastern Michigan University as the multicultural affairs coordinator. And through that position created a 4-credit course that was focused on multicultural leadership. And then from there, kind of left that position, and now I'm teaching. I'm a doc fellow, so I teach, or I'm a teaching fellow, so I teach leadership to undergraduate students, and we infuse a multicultural global citizenship kind of piece to it in the next course. So that will be 201 and 301. So that's how I'm currently doing the work inside the university. Outside the university, those experiences, those free experiences, those 5 years that I taught courses for free, that was the university was getting paid for, really gave me the skills and confidence to build my own platform. So that's where doing the good work comes from. And I'll tell you, 2016, I was sitting on my couch, really not doing anything with my life as it relates to the work outside of the university. Like, I was not this person who was going across the country presenting and all these things. Like, I tell you this, like, all these things happen by me just really being fed up with institutions not really doing what it takes for the work to be equitable and equal for everyone to have all the access that they need to the university's resources. Once I got to a point where I was done. I quit, took a huge leap of faith My salary went from 60,000 to 7,500 a year, and I was like, if this is not for me, I prayed to God that He would give me a sign that it wasn't for me. Sure, less than a year later, I'm looking at 20,000 in my bank account. Like I'm applying with a speaking agency for College for Life. I'm doing webinars with another agency, JP Higher Ed, a good friend of ours. Just taking the leap and really believing that this social justice education thing is something that I'm proud of and that I'm confident in. And the cosmos reached back and said, "Yeah, this is for you."
So, and I want to now kind of that the listeners are hearing a little bit about your journey and looking at the work, and I'm thinking through too back to when I was based primarily on a campus every day and trying to do this inclusion work, this equity work, social justice work, trying to do it within the confines of a campus space, and kind of hitting a wall, really, in terms of how the university is structured and, how even multicultural affairs, how we have like our identity-based centers and a little bit of siloing that happens there. I'm interested in your perspective, like, the work that you have been able to do outside the university and the work that you've been able to do inside the university. How would you describe that for other practitioners that are considering going out on their own and doing this work, whether part-time or full-time off campus as a consultant, as a speaker, as an entrepreneur? How would you kind of lay that context out there for them?
Yeah. First thing first is ethics. And I think we learned a little bit about ethics if as a student affairs practitioner and whatever program that you probably graduated from or whatever profession you graduated from. But ethics is key, and it's a huge conversation around consulting in higher education right now because there are a lot of practitioners that are consulting. There are a lot of people who are full-time who are also highly sought after. And the problem comes when people are not taking the time off to go across the country, and they're getting paid on the university's dime to be gone, and that's just unethical, And then you get misconstrued, and your integrity is challenged, and oftentimes you're looked at as a dishonest person when you do things, you operate in that way, right? Also, on the other end, there are also individuals, that we like to call haters, right? Like, this is put this out there, right? There will be people who talk down on you, who talk down to you, who don't believe in you, who don't believe that you have the skill set and knowledge set to do the things that you feel that you've been called by God to do, right? When you believe that it's your calling, you will be challenged. You will be challenged to grow. You will be challenged to change. You will be challenged to be better. And none of that comes easy. All of those three things is super hard. It's super hard to do. But you have to also recognize that if you feel like this is your calling, if you feel like this is what you've been put on this earth for, it doesn't matter what anybody says. It does not matter, right? And I think the biggest thing about it is if you only try once, or if it only took one person to tear you down and make you believe that this wasn't for you, how bad did you really want it? How bad did you really want the success for that? This is something to put in perspective.
Well, I think, what's really interesting about that. Yeah, no. And I think that's really interesting because, but what happens when we layer in the, systemic oppression, the fact that folks with, marginalized identities deal with like imposter syndrome in a very real way? Because I've had conversations with, entrepreneurs of color, queer and trans, folks that are trying to make money independently as, whether they're a solopreneur or just like trying to do some consulting work. How do you have any kind of tricks or tips that you have for folks that really do deal with like self-doubt and mindset, things that kind of weigh in a negative way?
I think, those things are real, right? Bureaucracy, cannot get around bureaucracy in the institution. So let's just first put it out there. Like there's three types of societies in the world that we identify, right? So socialist, communist, and capitalist. And so of the three, I'm gonna be honest, like capitalism is probably, the best when you're talking about social entrepreneurship, which is kind of where we're at, right, in the world that we're in, impact for profit. And honestly, you have to recognize that the institutions that operate in this country, they operate in a way that's very concise, that's very intentional, that is very structured. Like, it's very hard to tear that down. So I want to put that out there for the people who like really are like, I'm going to tear the institution down. Yeah, all right. Yeah, okay. But I wish you the best, right? But I know that there's a lot of people out there who are doing the work, who've been doing it for 30 years, 40 years, and they haven't tore down the institution. And they learn from people who was doing it for 30 years and 40 years, and they didn't tear down the institution, right? So that's just something to think about. But what I really want to talk about in answering your question, because I kind of got off on a side note, I'm sorry about that, is self-work. Self-work is critical. Self-work is the reason why I've been so successful. Is because I know I've done a lot. I have done a lot for myself to get myself in a position to be able to take critique. And no matter how good you are, no matter how great you get, there's always somebody out there who knows a little bit more, that can give you a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Even people who motivate people need motivation. And so knowing that, you need to have the ability to take critique and do that self-work that is needed to say, this is where I lack. So in a moment where I'm being challenged on this topic and I'm not the best person in it, I'm not giving that institutional answer of beating the answer around the bush, trying to make it seem like I know the answer, but I really don't, because that's not social justice, right? Making it seem like you're the key, that's not social justice. I think the next thing is, for me, I've allowed for mentors and people to literally and figuratively tear down my work. So at the end of the day, the impact is not about impacting your life, the educator, right? The end of the day is not about the educator. It's about those being educated, right? Those people who are sitting in the audience, those people who are sitting in the classroom. And so if your work can't be critiqued, then your work will never get better. And then that makes it about you. It doesn't make it about the student. It doesn't make it about the audience. It doesn't make it about the community. And so when people can dissect your work and take that as a compliment, that is something that they're willing to take the time to actually break down and give you some feedback on. Like, that is critical in this work. Because what we do know is that over 400 years of oppression in this country is not going to come from the same ideas that helped build this 400-year country. We're not going to get to an equitable space by using the same practices. We're not.
And so it sounds like self-work is, what is it? What does developing this muscle for self-work, like, what does it look like to develop a strong practice of really fine-tuning one's self-work? Like, what are all the practices that are entailed in that for you?
Good question. So one person I feel like that I think you have some familiarity with is Brene Brown. And she talks about vulnerability and how vulnerability is one of the most misused, I would say, skill sets out there. I believe vulnerability is the key to really finding out who your authentic self is. And when I talk, how does authenticity help with self-work? It really helps you figure out where and when and how you came to a mindset of this, whatever this is. It really helps you see the pain points, the pleasure points in your life that led to this moment. But the only way that you're going to be able to get to that level of authenticity is by really being vulnerable. by really telling your real story. No matter how many tears it has behind it or how many smiles it has behind it, it needs to be your real story. And people are afraid of being vulnerable because in America, that's a sign of weakness, quote unquote. But I'm willing to challenge that, because the most successful people that we find in the day age of social media are the people who are not only able to tell us their success, but also their failure. Not just the people who are able to tell us that they made $1 million, but also the people who can tell us that they lost $1 million, right? Like, those are the people that we listen to. Those are the people who challenge the status quo. Those are the people who said, I don't want to work for somebody. Somebody's going to work for me. That is the difference. Those are the people who said, I don't believe that this community is meeting my needs. I'm going to do the things that I need to do to build a community that's going to make sure that my needs are met. So all we need to do is add a social justice piece to that, where our social justice community is out there literally and figuratively changing how we do business. And we have a totally different conversation, I think, in 50 years.
So, Dar, I mean, you're doing a lot of different things right now, right? You're a doc student, you are a consultant, you have multiple businesses, and you're a practitioner, along with, being a husband and a father, right? And so tell us, like, if you were to look back and tell us that story of how you arrived to today, what would you tell us? Like, how did you get here?
Ooh, okay. So first and foremost, I'm going to put this out there. This is why innovation and business is solely needed. 100%, hands down, free work has landed me here 7 years after I started my professional career. 8 years. And doing free work in the space that I felt the most passionate about. So at the time when I first started doing diversity and inclusion, trainings, all I cared about was ensuring that students, no matter what leaders, whatever background they came from, I really cared about students talking about race. Like, I just cared about it. And so I would use the umbrella of diversity to just get a couple minutes to talk about race solely with student leaders. Of course, we would talk about other things, and I needed to learn about other identities, so sexual orientation, gender, sex, all those, socioeconomic status. I needed to learn about those things, but I really cared about race. And I kept getting afforded the opportunity to do these, trainings and courses, and I would do them for free. And I tell you, a lot of people are afraid of doing free work. I want to be honest with you and tell you that all the listeners out there, that free work leads to paid work. There's not, actually, great free work leads to paid work. Right? Because you don't want to just be putting out mediocre stuff. But it has to be some of your best stuff. And so May 6, 2016, my wife was just like, hey, why don't you listen to this interview on The Breakfast Club? And I said, I don't even know what The Breakfast Club is. I have no idea. And she was like, you would like these, interviewers, right? DJ Envy, Angela Lee, Charlamagne the God. And they were interviewing a guy that was super serious about business. And she was like, I think you would like his message. And it was Gary Vee. And for those who have not heard of Gary Vee, he's just a social media guru, speaks all across the world. And he's, what you would call a social media hustler. That's what I think he calls himself. And he really just pointed to me that, number one, making money for yourself, even if it's $1, as long as it's your best stuff, makes it worth so much more than that. So much more than that. And the next day I started the business, started Good Mayweather Consulting. I had no plan. I had no strategy, none of that. Literally, I was like, I'm going to start a business. I want to teach people about diversity and inclusion because that's my best stuff. I have students across the country using my framework to lead across whatever profession that they are in. Fast forward to May 6, 2017, I have helped multiple businesses start and launch companies. I have helped myself make $20,000 and go independent, not working full-time for a university. And I've also helped my wife launch her own business, which gave me all the confidence in the world that I can help anybody else in the world. To be totally honest.
Yeah, that's amazing. So it sounds like, you were talking about self-work earlier and that you are constantly just developing yourself. Can you share out with the listeners, if there's that one book, podcast, or resource that really shapes or informs the way that you approach this work? What would that be?
Yeah. Two things. So first and foremost, the Social Justice Training Institute, or SJTI, for the listeners out there. Hopefully you have either been a part of the community or, if not, heard of the community. One thing I will say to you is that experience has changed how I see social justice in a totality. And if I can share a story real quick, can I share a story real quick?
Absolutely.
Mentor and fave, Reverend Dr. Jamie Washington. I was in the caucus group with nothing but Black folk, and we were talking about how how this experience has been for us. And the one thing I said was, I don't know how this experience has been for me because I don't know what I'm gaining from this. And he was like, Dar, this is why you don't know. It's because you're super special. And I'm like, okay. And he was like, you're so special that you don't recognize how much more special people see you than other people who are like you. And I was like, got my mind working, had my mind like in gears and thinking about all the interactions I had with all the people who were there and recognizing that they were not engaging my Black male friends and colleagues in the same space in the same way for whatever reason. From there, literally changed how I see and operate in the work. Because even though I have marginalized identities, in that space, my other identities was operating so much more that gave me so much more privilege than others that looked just like me. Totally changed how I do the work, right? And then the book is Teaching for Diversity and Social Justice, the Orange Book. It's a hard read. It's a text. I mean, it's serious, but it breaks down identity by identity how you need to be contextualizing this work, because content is good, but context is better.
Now, for folks that haven't seen the Teaching for Diversity and Social Justice book before, I guess when I hear about it again, I think of the orange cover, definitely. And it's a little bit of a workbook, isn't it?
Absolutely.
In the sense that practitioners use it.
Oh yeah. So this is for the teachers, right? So this is not for, I wouldn't say this is for the readers, but they do have a reading for diversity and social justice, right? And that is the blue book. And both are important. But I also feel like for this community, I think you all care enough about social justice that you want to teach it, that you want to be a part of that movement. And I see you all needing to have both.
Yeah, that's interesting that you mentioned the readings for diversity and social justice. When I was in community college, that was assigned as one of my core texts for one of my social science classes, and I still use it to this day. Looking at some of the core readings around race, around gender, and even though they've updated it, right, and added, they've gone through their volumes, I still use the one that I had, I won't even say what year that was, right? But it was way back. It's been a while.
Well, it's still relevant.
And I still find the readings useful. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Well, that's cool to know that those are the resources that are shaping your experience. Because I've heard a lot of people talk about the Social Justice Training Institute, and people that are considering it, and I know it's quite an expenditure to get professional development funds to attend. If you came across a colleague who was asking you why should I participate in SJTI, what would you tell them?
Yeah, it's not a trainer. I would tell them that. I would tell them that don't go in there and believing that you're going to come out of there with all kind of activities and workshops or things that you can charge people for. That's not what it's for. It's for the person who really cares about doing social justice work to do the self work. Because let's look at it like this: how much can we help somebody when we haven't even helped our own self? What can we give to someone when we don't give to ourselves? How can we professionally develop somebody in this work, social justice, when we're not being professionally developed? And that's what I see a lot with a lot of these social justice educators out here who are ready to just lay the smack down on everybody, right? Like they are super ready. They got their fingers on the letter on the computer, and they're ready to type away. They're ready to call away. And the problem that I see with them is that they have no one that they're going back to say, did I do this work? Did I do this right? They have no one that they're going back to say, give me more development. They don't have anyone that go back to say, how do I look when I'm expressing this? Am I operating in my excellence? Am I operating in a way that gets me to the top? And I think that's a huge piece of it.
Yeah.
And so you're going to get the opportunity to do the self work. You're going to have the opportunity to be as vulnerable as you need to be so you can really start growing, because that's where the growth starts.
That's great. So Dar, we're shifting gears a little bit, and this is a big question, so brace yourself. But what has been the biggest lesson that you've learned in your professional life that you could share with people listening to this podcast?
I'm going to go back to free work leads to paid work, and you must invest in the free work. You must invest, like actual dollars. So, go out and present at a regional conference on something that you care about. Go out and purchase the strategy that helps you take your business to the next level. Like, what's at stake is so much bigger than $500. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's at stake is so much bigger than you taking a week out of your time to go across the country and educate maybe a small group of people. Like, what's at stake, right? Especially in today's climate. Like, our country is seeing things that people are saying that it looks like the 60s. And what we know about the 60s in America was that we was making rumbles all across the world. Like, America in the 60s, full of oppression, full of hatred, full of progress, but at the cost of bloodshed. And this is the time that we are saying that we are seeing today. And so a lot is at stake. We are potentially able to go back. If people are not putting their best free work out today, if the social justice educators are not putting out their best free work today, we could end up 200 years from now being in the same place that we were 200 years ago. And so, have the confidence, invest in yourself, put out that free work. We have a lot at stake.
So you mentioned also attending, summits or conferences. What are the other ways that you invest in yourself, Dar?
Well, that's a good question. So, of course, I think a big part of my, glow up is sponsorship from influencers, people who I felt were amazing at the work. I sent them an email. I sent them a Facebook message. I reached out to them multiple times. I try my best to get on the phone call with them. Like, anything that I can do to get them to notice me, to notice what I'm doing, and to also critique my work is huge. I think another piece of how to develop yourself is to put your head in the research. Like, just think about it like this. What expert do we know that don't put in work on the research end? Can you even be considered an expert if you don't do any research? and so essentially, putting it simply, is what are other experts saying? What are they saying about the things that you are out there, preaching and believing that you're giving your best talent to? What are they saying about the newness, right? What are they saying about the old theories? What are they saying about the new frameworks? What are they saying about the new individuals who are leading the group of new influencers? You need to know those things. You need to study those individuals. Study what they do right. Study what they do wrong. Give your own perspective to it, and then see if you can implement it. Another thing that I use is, a lot of people feel like this is bad, but Wikipedia, SlideShare, and Pinterest. Right? So Wikipedia, just because it just gives you a overall like where you're headed, and they also have resources where you can like click on a link, or you can look up an article. So that's another place that you can find some resources. SlideShare is because literally it's probably somebody who did a presentation on the exact topic that you're trying to do a presentation on. And so I'm not telling you to go steal their presentation. Like, don't do that. But I think you need to use that as a framework of how you need to build your presentation. Or if you want to present at a conference, use that as a framework. And then Pinterest. I think a lot of people look at Pinterest as like this social media site like Facebook, and it's not. It's more like Google. It's more of a search engine. And so if there's a topic out there that you are interested in, I'm willing to bet that the bloggers also have a passion around that topic. And so see what the bloggers are saying, seeing what the actual people who I look at bloggers as kind of like frontline individuals. Like, they have their perspective. They kind of understand the work, but they also using a different lens of how they're explaining it. See what the bloggers are saying, right? Because that's content. That's always useful. So those are some spaces that I would say some folks can get some development for sure.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. And Dar, what's that one piece of guidance that you'd give to other professionals that are doing social justice and inclusion work today?
Yeah. The goal is to make impact, positive impact. When we leave a space, there's oftentimes there's easily a taste in somebody's mouth, and it can either be good or bad. And honestly, we have a responsibility to ensure that the taste is good, even when sometimes the delivery to the person is the most awful thing that they had to taste in a long time. I think we still have a responsibility to try to make it as right as possible. It doesn't always work. And I get that some people are not going to change, but I think that it's a part of the work. I'm not trying to. I don't think part of our job is to convert people into these awesome, amazing social justice allies. I think our job in the work is to move people forward, to move people to a higher level of understanding, and I would love for our community to do that.
Dar, what's the next thing that you're working on with doing the good work?
Ooh, yes. The most exciting thing that I can tell people about doing the good work right now is the small business crash course on hashtag marketing, how I use doing the good work, the hashtag, to build a super impactful, authoritative pillar in higher education for people who care about social justice and diversity. I'm literally teaching people the system that I've created to create a hashtag, which I call a hashtag is doing the good work. Hashtag doing the good work is a hashtag. It has helped me spread my message. It has helped me spread my products and services, and it has also helped me make a little bit of change. Similar to what you would call like share a Coke, or if you have ever heard of hashtag tweet from your seat. What many people don't know about these hashtags is they're some of the most profitable hashtags in hashtag history, all using hashtag marketing. So I kind of adopted that system, used doing the good work, and I don't do cold calls, I don't do cold emails, I don't send messages on LinkedIn and, well, maybe LinkedIn because that's important, but on Instagram and Facebook or anything like that. People come to me for my work, and it's all through hashtag marketing. And so for those of you who are interested in growing a brand, those of you who believe that you have something special in you, or those of you who are just fed up with the institution, you want to make a couple extra dollars because you want to go on an amazing vacation, hit me up. doingthegoodwork.com/free resources. Sign up for my email list, and you'll be sure one of the first people to know when I launch my free webinar, #TheCash. Literally the small business crash course to hashtag marketing on social media.
Nice. Cool. And so if folks wanted to connect with you, is that the best way, or do you have another preferred method if folks want to add you to their network?
Oh, yeah. Follow me at Doing the Good Work on Facebook, Instagram, at Good Mayweather on Twitter. Reach out to me, shoot me an email, info@doingthegoodwork.com. One thing I've been telling people is that I'm not afraid to do free work. Like, I am not afraid of it. Actually give me a call. We can set up a call, 15, 20 minutes. I guarantee you, I'll have you looking and thinking about entrepreneurship in so many different ways that you'll probably start a business in the next 2 weeks. And then on my free resources website, it literally tells you I have a how to create an LLC. I have a how to create a strategic plan that will help you literally write out your entire business plan. And I have a free how to create a strategic budget. All of my free resources are free. Make sure you download those, and you'll have an LLC in 2 weeks. I guarantee you, 100%.
That's amazing. I mean, it's so complicated to think about where all this information even exists right now for small business owners or people that want to start one, that I'm so glad that you're putting it all in one place, because it just takes much of the work out of it. So thanks for doing that.
Yeah, no, I'm just telling you. I'm telling the listeners out there, if you can't trust a person who saves you thousands of dollars, thousands of dollars of what people are paying for the information that I'm giving out for free. I'm just saying.
Yep. All right. And I mean, you've used it to start multiple businesses. So it's it's like tried and true. It's like you've proven that these things work. So that's excellent, because people also are looking for, like some sort of evidence that this is going, that their energy and their efforts are going to pay off, because it's a level, like you talked about earlier, the vulnerability that it takes, right? Mm-hmm. To put your name out there, to create a brand, to venture out, even if it is, part-time at first, and you try to, have a side hustle and grow that into a full-time. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of work. So thanks for sharing those resources out with people.
Absolutely.
Well, Dar, it's been amazing. Thanks so much for being with us today. I'm so glad that the listeners got to hear from someone who not only is a practitioner on a college campus, a doctoral student, but also someone that is an entrepreneur, right? Is someone that is wearing all these different hats and can speak from these different perspectives. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, no, thank you so much for having me on. I am in love with the social justice community, for better or for worse. I'm married into it. Y'all not going to get rid of me. I'm not going to get rid of y'all. So let's do this together.
Nice. So Dar, as a token of my gratitude for your time and your brilliance, I would like to share with you a limited edition flash drive that I had created with the new Resilient Campus logo. And I know it's not much, but it is pretty fly, so you could use it for all those presentations that you're giving. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
And I want to close out with an inspirational quote. Yeah, and I'm so excited that it's from you, Dar. So I want to close out with an inspirational quote to send you all back out into the world. Today's quote comes from the one and only Dar Mayweather. And he says, "I believe entrepreneurship is the only sure way that my community will get what it needs in healthcare, education, politics, and economics." To all those listening in, thank you so much for all that you do. I truly appreciate you. Stay resilient. Thanks so much for tuning in. Head on over to iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher to subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss out on a single episode.